Hey folks, so today we'll talk about the knowledge graphs and a quite interesting theory actually. We will talk about the semantical space-time and smart spaces actually. So the author of the theory, it's the interesting guy who came from the theoretical physics and then switched to the software engineering, and he bring a lot of theoretical physics things to the graphs actually, and not only. And yeah, we will not talk about the relativity theory and all other things, but the main idea of the semantical space-times is the space and time. Yeah, so it's no magic. But what the author says that that you have the space that have things that have the locations, right? And these locations have some forms of the coordinates, and the time actually is changing the coordinates over the time, right? So it's movement, and it's quite interesting things by itself. And when we talk about the semantical spaces, actually, we all know the semantic similarities, embeddings, and the vector embeddings, and all those things. But here the author says that the semantical vector spaces could be inefficient because you have a lot of dimensions, and sometimes you could have the points in a space that doesn't make sense. And he proposed much flexible and more meaningful way of expressing the similarities just using the graphs. So you have the graph, and in a graph you have four kind of relations, and one relation is a similarity and near relation that say that some things are close to each other, and it's a weighted relation. So when you say that something is near, you usually use some kind of distance, right? And three other relations is the casual relations that really express the time, and the casual consequences like lead to, and then you have the hierarchy and the attributes. But today we will talk more about the space itself. And when we talk about the semantical space, as I already mentioned, that vector embeddings are a cool thing, but they struggle with the explainability that you have the thousands of dimensions, but you couldn't say what this dimension mean, and it's the problem. And if you change the embedding model, you need to re-embed practically everything, because then you will lose the meaning. So it's easy to work with the vector similarity because it's easy to calculate the distances and all of things. But in the same time, not always the vector spaces are the good choice. And when we talk about the semantical spaces, we could apply the same thing, but with more meaningful way. So we could have the multi-dimensional space where the dimensions have a meaning. So we could explain them, and for different dimensions, we could use the different methods. For example, we could have the special dimension that just use the vector spaces. We could have the semantical dimensions that use some ontologies to form the similarities and all other things. And for example, you could use the different functions to measure the distances, and this distance could have the contextual meaning. And it's quite interesting thing that your distance could depend on the context, and it makes sense because the entities could change the meaning depending on the context, and we bring something called the pragmatical proximity. Yeah? So where the context reshape completely the distance and meaning of the things, and itself it's quite powerful idea, and it could be quite powerful for the artificial intelligence memory, because the context of the conversation actually could really reshape the meaning of the things. And these multi-dimensional semantical spaces just express not as a huge vectors, but as a relations. So you have the multiple of the relations that encode the dimension and the distance in this dimension. So, and for sure you lose the ability to visualize such things, because the graphs with the multi-dimensional spaces doesn't really good for the visualization. But you have completely flexible and meta framework to really express the similarities in a completely different way. And I really encourage you to take a look to the semantical time space. And in my next videos, actually, we will talk about some different relations that semantical time spaces bring, and for sure we will talk about the time also. But the similarity is the key part actually of this meaning. So I will share the article that I wrote about it, and I will make the article specifically for this video. So, and if you're interested to talk about it, just shout to me, maybe in LinkedIn, and for sure we will make the session together. See you next time. Choose.